Are you sensing a shift among young people, but I think more specifically among young women, to get married young and have children?
There's 100% a shift. Here's the shift. The shift isn't yet that the numbers are in our favor in terms of young women waking up to the reality of my life is not just about me and about girl bossing. My life is about purpose and relationships, and marriage is the best thing that most people can do, right? This side of heaven, right? So there aren't enough people waking up to that, but there are more people waking up to that.
If American men are going to find a wife, they better start praying now, because American women are opting to marry later, if at all. Are women giving up on marriage? You know, the Bible says that he that findeth a wife finds a good thing and obtains favor from the Lord. But if American men are going to find a wife, they better start praying now, because American women are opting to marry later, if at all. And this is a very interesting trend. For generations, the Americans have built a blueprint of education, career, and then eventually family and marriage. But tonight we are looking at the data that proves that that blueprint has been shredded, and that the women are the ones who are taking the scissors and destroying it. There is a silent societal divorce that is underway. American women have never been this resigned to staying single. They are out earning men, out educating men, and in a massive demographic shift, they are choosing independence over partnership. More women than men are going to college. More women are buying houses. And if you look at the surveys, the message is clear. They would rather be alone than be with a man who holds them back. I mean, that's just an earful and a mouthful all by itself. Today, they are saying we'd rather be alone than a man who holds us back. So the Pew Research doesn't lie, and it says that only 34% of single women are looking for romance. While meanwhile, on TikTok, the new generation is proudly declaring themselves as boy sober, choosing self-improvement and careers and friendship over the headache of dating. Teen relationships are even plummeting, and sex, oh my God, is on a decline. So I would really love to hear from the both of you, because as I was reading these statistics, I'll be honest with you, I was shocked. As far as I know, girls have always been the one who, you know, women were always excited about getting married. We were the ones that always had the dream of, if nothing else, just getting a white dress, walking down the aisle, having the big day. But now when we're seeing that a 2022 Pew survey found that single adults only showed, of single adults, only 34% of single women were looking for romance. 34% of single women are looking for romance compared to 54% of single men. Okay, and that's down from 38% and 61% in 2019. So I would love to hear your thoughts from both of you. I want to start with you, Maddie.
Okay.
You're a little bit younger, and so maybe you're a little bit closer to the situation. Are you seeing that this is the case? And where is this coming from? Like, is it just new women's liberation? Are we witnessing a catastrophic failure of American men?
I would give, like, you know, a little bit of like, I would blame both sides, because I think that with the men, I think the reason that women are saying that they rather just, you know, sleep around, it's because the expectation of men, like men, a lot of men are only looking for a woman to sleep with, even though we do have a lot of men that are doing the right thing and they're looking for a wife. So because those women, they want someone, you know, to lean on, or they want companionship, they'll settle for the sex, and they'll pretend they'll be loud and proud about it, when really deep down inside they want someone that'll, you know, stay with them. So
that's interesting. That's interesting. What do you think, Felice?
Well, having married later in life, I married at 35, and being a Gen Xer and in college, my generation was sold the bill of goods of feminism, right? So we are the generation that started with educating and marrying later. I'm the generation of Murphy Brown. You're probably too young for that, but Murphy Brown was single, successful, and then had a baby by herself. For the first time, we saw that on our TVs, and I remember it being a big deal. But I have thought about it very a lot, that I think that the hijacking of the church, the hijacking of communities by feminism, by liberalism, has been very purposeful. Again, I look at it through a God view and then through a political view of strength of nations. If you have a nation where the people have nothing to work for, nothing to fight for, then that nation will be very easy to topple.
Wow.
And so therefore, I think, and I may be going way too deep in what I'm thinking, is that all of this has been very purposeful. The women, particularly what they call the awfuls, affluent, white, liberal females, right?
The awfuls, I've never heard that.
have hijacked the civil rights, right? Civil rights community, where Black men were married. They sought Black women. Our families were very important. Fast forward after the 60s into the 70s of liberation, where we see for the first time, especially in Black homes and white homes too, that the family was broken to get any type of government aid, to where whatever the reasons are, either for why you have these hopes of selling this fairy tale marriage with no problems, and as soon as problems arrive, there's no biblical backing to say, hey, marriage is work, because why? Again, the awfuls, the money, the parties have now influenced the church. They've infiltrated the church, where you can't talk about these things, where you can't talk about women being married. I remember when I first got saved and became a born again Christian, I went to my home church and I spoke about Walter Williams' book. And Walter Williams was a Black radio personality. He was an economist and philosopher, and he's passed now, but he was a Black conservative along with Thomas Sowell. And they said to stay out of poverty, right? Get married, have your children, finish college, and not really college, but high school in America, get married, and then have your children. You're less likely to be in poverty, less likely to struggle, you're less likely to do all of that. All of that got washed away, because then came in the you can't judge me. Don't judge. So I think this has all been orchestrated. I think it's been very purposeful. I think it is very sad. But however, I do have hope, because there is a silver lining in that the Zoomer generation is what they're calling us, right? The early 20s now. Those in the conservative women population are getting married. So there is some hope, and they're are focusing on children again. I don't want to monopolize that, but I do think this has been a very purposeful, attended thing to bring about this.
Oh yeah, I don't disagree with you. I learned several years ago, like there's a reason why you don't see women on television anymore cooking or cleaning.
Yes.
You know, a lot of times you'll see the husband. You're more likely to see a husband cleaning or cooking, but you don't necessarily see the father knows best, traditional father motherly roles on television, and that's because it's been censored. You know, so there is some intentionality. And I think that for a lot of people, we form our expectations of what marriage is going to be like based on what we saw in our parents, what we saw in our grandparents, and certainly in what we see in television.
Right.
And so I think that has certainly skewed our perspective. But as you said, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, because there is a movement afoot, even among conservative women, which gives light to the reality that it has to be purposeful. There are people who have a totally different point of view and are seeing marriage in a totally totally different way. Let's hear what Raleigh Gaines has to say about this in this video clip. Watch.
Liberal women, age 18 to 35, are childless, and you compare that with about 40% of women who are conservative. The Wall Street Journal, in this article, it reported that a growing number of young conservative women are choosing to prioritize family early on, getting married, having children in their 20s, instead of following kind of the more common career first, kids later, girl boss path. There's a Telegraph headline that we have in here that says, "Why midlife divorce is good for you." Are you sensing a shift among young people, but I think more specifically among young women, to get married young and have children?
There's 100% a shift. Here's the shift. The shift isn't yet that the numbers are in our favor in terms of young women waking up to the reality of my life is not just about me and about girl bossing. My life is about purpose and relationships, and marriage is the best thing that most people can do, right? This side of heaven, right? So there aren't enough people waking up to that, but there are more people waking up to that.
Awesome. I agree. And it just makes me think how important it is to have the Bible and to have education, and not just a liberal education, but something that points us back to the Word of God, because the Bible is the foundation of marriage. And that's why it was so catastrophic to see the government try to redefine marriage. And I remember our pastor, Bishop Patrick Wooden, saying years ago, once we start teeter-tottering with marriage and we start redefining it, we're going to take the value away from it, and we're going to see people not wanting to get married as much anymore. But the question that I have for both of you is, what do you think the difference is? Like, why is it that conservative women are flipping the script and going counterculture and saying, instead of, resigning not to get married, they're actually putting marriage and having children first? Like, where do you think that phenomenon is?
I think it's just like what she said, Miss Felice. I think it's really intentional.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's, once you are educated or you learn about, okay, what is the reason that the prior generation, like maybe they worship sex. Because in my generation, like when I was in college, like sex is worship. You're looked down on if you wait.
Mm-hmm.
Like you get teased and called, oh, you don't nobody want you, that type of thing. If you're not dating a basketball player, dating, you know what I'm saying? But I think now I see a lot of young people getting married in college now. There are people. There are people who come to like Turning Point events and they're like 18 and 19 and they're like, yeah, my wife, my husband. I'm like, what? So that's amazing. And I think it's just being more intentional about it, knowing, okay. And then also, I remember when I was younger, and until I got older and I like experienced different things. When I was younger, I always wanted to be like someone's wife. But what I saw it as was like being a princess.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I get older, I didn't think about. I didn't have, that's why I went to the military. So for those who didn't know, I was in the National Guard.
Mm-hmm.
And I went into the National Guard because I really didn't know what I wanted to really do with my life. All I knew was I want to be a mother and I want to have a husband.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I think, I think it is all, I feel that it has all been purposeful, or I think, having been the class of, you've got to crank it out, like in those with the women, in my generation, like very few of my classmates from college are married. And I didn't get married until I was 35.
Mm-hmm.
And you have all these things. Like one of the things is I didn't want a husband that had been divorced. And so, but once you start getting married later, you're going to have all these things that you didn't want to do. And so, I now, like, my saved life, and then I had my child older, right? So then that's harder, right? As you're trying to be pregnant older, it is for the young. And it just changed my whole perspective of, like, get married, have your babies. I mean, even where I work now, I'm always telling the girls, get married.
Yeah.
And they'll say, well, I want to do this, that, and the other. And I was like, well, why can't you do that married? Or I want to get my degree. I'm like, you can do that married. Want to save for a house? I said, can do that married.
Yeah.
And so, but there's something about what has happened in American culture that you have to have already been successful, especially in Black culture. We talk about Black women who I really, really care about the most, is that we have just been sold such a bag of goods rather than helping our people and helping you, being a true helpmeet, right? Being what a helpmeet is. And we want to look at these men as already arrived. And so then we might let that person go at 22, but then when we see them at 32,
that's right.
Yeah.
and they've moved on, and sometimes they've moved on to outside their race, and we get so jealous. And it's like, well, you had that opportunity
So true.
to build him up.
So true.
And so I just really want women to start really, you know, building up men again. And the flirting is gone.
Yeah.
And all of those things have been taken out of our society. This segment could have been very long, but move on.
Well, I definitely think that there's a lot to be said. I mean, and family is the bedrock of society.
Exactly.
So anything that is worth it for us to have a conversation about, I think it's family and marriage. Yeah. And one of the things that I think has made an impact on conservative women, to be honest, is TPUSA. I mean, and I think just organizations that have conservative values, as you've said, a lot of our churches have been overhauled. Certainly in our on our college campuses, you're not hearing a lot that is encouraging specifically women to get married. I remember growing up and just telling people that my mom was a homemaker, and that was just like, oh, she does nothing. And it's like, what are you talking about? You know, especially now as a wife, I know that is the hardest job that you could ever have. But I think that organizations like TPUSA that go on, there are so many videos out there where Charlie Kirk is telling people, get married, start a family, have children. This is what you need to do. And I think they're one of few, of course, but I know that organization has such a loud voice to encourage conservative Christian values. I shouldn't say conservative first. I should say Christian values to young people, to the next generation.